Faith, please come to the stage. Welcome Faith as she shares with us her story of finding love on the internet.
We live in a world that demands that we change and that we change fast just to keep up. And we also live in a world that teaches us that change is hard, maybe even painful. And I just want to take a second to say that the kind of change I'm talking about tonight is everyday life change. It's not the kind of traumatic, slamming change that has hit Nepal, has hit Chile, and has hit Everest. I'm just talking about everyday life change. What they're going through is totally different. So, in our lives, what if the real pain is when we don't change? When we don't become the kind of person we want to be? We don't take our business to the next level. We don't meet our goals. We believe the myth that change equals struggle. Now, I grew up in a family that didn't change. Well, most of us probably did. Families don't change a whole lot. And when I was conceived, my parents were living in a tent in rural Nova Scotia. They weren't camping. They lived there. They had orange boxes for cupboards. They had a hole in the ground for a toilet. And although things got better, we graduated to living in the back rooms of people's houses, and eventually a house was provided for us. But my father always worked for fundamentalist Christian organizations that paid almost nothing. So we stayed poor, and that was painful. Another thing that didn't change was my parents, for 35 years, they fought. They argued. They didn't know how to communicate with each other. And that didn't change, and that was painful. So, what if change is actually our friend? And what if there are ways that we can approach and engage with change that make it easy? It's March 9th, 2010, 7:30 in the morning. I'm standing in Halifax International Airport watching every passenger come down the arrivals escalator. I am looking for a man I have never met. A man who is going to stay at my house for 9 days. Maybe sleep in my bed. It all started 4 months ago when I decided to take my own advice. As a change facilitator, one of the things I do is assist people to define and create the kind of relationship they really want. And sometimes that includes navigating the internet dating scene. And I thought, well, Faith, you've been alone for 3 years and you really like relationship, so why not you do this? So I did. I went online and I met Roger, sitting in his sister's cabin, 4 time zones and 3,000 miles away, mid-divorce. And now, after hundreds of emails, many late-night phone calls, and lots of photographs showing my life and his life and our families, he's coming to visit. In spite of all that interaction, my oldest daughter said, "Mom, you are giving me a heart attack. What if he is a serial killer?" And there he is, dodging the other arriving passengers, and we meet. We go for breakfast in a neutral place, Future Inn. And then briefly to my house, and then off to Peggy's Cove. I mean, where else? Where we take photos of our shadows holding hands on the rocks. He stays for 9 days. And we're apart for about half an hour when I go to get groceries and he rakes leaves. It was not the kind of march we've had this year. If it had been, he might have got right back on the plane and never returned. So he met my family, they loved him, he met my good friends, and then after 9 days, he went back out west. In June, I went to meet his family and enjoy those reactions. And in July, over the phone, we got engaged. By August, Roger had quit his job, said, "See you later" to his grown family, packed up his Buick and started driving across the continent, followed somewhere by a moving van with his dark blue '66 Mustang in it and some bits and pieces. He drove the first half with his sister for company, and then I flew to Minneapolis and met him, and we drove the rest of the way across the continent in the confines of a car so we could really get to know each other. Because by September, we're living together. By October, we're married. Now, you might guess there were a few changes in those months from the first email to when we got married. And you know what? Those changes were easy. We could have seen that 3,000 miles and the Canadian immigration system and families on different coasts, employment on different coasts. We could have seen that as insurmountable, but we didn't. And what made those changes easy? Well, one thing was what motivated us. We were motivated from our hearts. We really wanted to share a life. We wanted to share love. And unfortunately, in our culture, often when we try to get ourselves to do things, we use pressure to motivate. I have to, I must, I better. I'll get in trouble if I don't. Or we could have thought, yeah, we're losers, we don't have anybody, and we better find somebody. We didn't go that route. We were motivated by what some call our authentic self, that inner sense of what you really, really want. Because when we use pressure to motivate ourselves, even when the pressure comes from ourselves, we resist. We don't like to feel pressured. And resistance looks like procrastination, confusion, instant fatigue, anxiety. All those things are resistance because we're motivating ourselves with pressure, and we didn't do that. We were consistently motivated from in here. The other thing that made it change easy was both of us internally had agreement with ourselves about what we were doing. That may sound odd. But when we go to make changes, sometimes we don't realize that we have a brain that has 3 levels. And each level of the brain has a different valuing system. Call it 3-dimensional values. And often on a conscious level, we go, yeah, I want to meet somebody. Yeah, I want to get fit. Yeah, I want to earn 6 figures. But on another level, I need my mic back. I need 3 hands right now. On another level, there's how we want to feel. And most of us, we want to feel comfortable. We want to go on the internet and do it. That feels weird. We don't want to go to the gym. That hurts. We don't want to create a business plan and have all that work to earn that money. So how we feel is different than what we think. Our conscious values are one thing. Our feeling values often incompatible. And then we have another set of values, which is, I'm not as fit as I'd like to be, which is our experience. And it doesn't matter if you are the president of an international company or the janitor in a retail store, you are run by what your experience tells you is truth. And a lot of times, maybe nobody in the family went to the gym, so there's no blueprint. There's no experiential picture of what fitness could look like. Maybe like my family, you were poor, and there's no picture of abundance. So why bother trying to earn a lot of money? And maybe relationships weren't so great. So why make the effort to go on the internet or step out there and meet somebody? But with Roger and I, on a conscious level, we knew we wanted to be together. That was our goal. We wanted a good relationship. We wanted to share life with someone who had wanted a similar life. And then on an emotional level, we were willing to pay the price. We faced the challenges, we knew what they were, and we were emotionally on board. And then Roger, at least, had a blueprint for what relationship can be. He had watched his parents for 68 years love each other. I met them in their late 90s, bright, present, wise, loving, welcoming. Roger came east with their blessing, even though he wouldn't see much of them in their last couple of years. And he had that image of what a relationship could be. I saw them, and when the way they looked at each other and the way they touched, after 68 years, they were in love. So he knew what relationship could be. And I'd done enough work on myself. I had some ideas of what I wanted and what could be. So when you think of your life and what you want to be different, I can tell you, change has been my friend, and it can be yours. Our lives, our families, our workplaces, and even our planet need us to be good at change. So let's make it easy. And the love of my life is right there.